Awesome. Well, thank you guys for having me. And I'm sorry, I'm so like in the dark. Um, I'm
It's
gonna
an
share,
evening meeting.
right, it's kind of nice. Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen so you guys can see. I put a couple slides together to just walk you through things. Can you guys see that okay?
Mhm.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so thank you for having me. Like Jennifer said, I'm a senior client success manager here at Edelweiss. So I usually work with mostly with our strategic partnerships, and also help with education and just advocacy for improvements to the platform, really based on feedback from our users. So I'll be kicking off today, and then I'll probably pass along to our amazing marketing manager, Amanda Murphy, that's on here, so she can chat a bit about her marketing expertise for publishers once we get to those slides. Um, yeah, when I was looking at this, I was like, I should have put tonight's topics, but we'll cover things like who are we, who is our market, how do they use the platform, and then jump into kind of the three main options for publishers: catalog services, review copies, and marketing options. I just wanted to kind of cover all the bases in case you're at different levels of familiarity with Edelweiss. So, what is Edelweiss? We're a small company started by the son of a bookseller and the grandson of a librarian. We used to be based in Ann Arbor, Michigan, but over the pandemic, we've kind of gone fully remote, and now we have employees kind of all over the US and then beyond as well. We're made up, you can kind of see that user breakdown here, but we're made up of a large audience of booksellers, librarians, reviewers, consumers, and then, of course, publishers and sales reps. And folks use us for a variety of functions and reasons, but really the main ones would be title discovery. So looking for new titles to either shelve in their stores, or review if you're a reviewer, libraries to look at as well. Ordering and inventory management, downloading digital review copies, reviewing titles and establishing communities of peers, and then decision support and analytics, and of course, publisher, sales, and marketing. I wanted to just make sure that made sense before we moved on here and see if you had any questions about kind of the different uses of the platform.
Are you able to expand a tiny bit about the difference between reviewers and consumers as you all define it?
Yeah, so when someone signs up, it's a free to sign up for an account on Edelweiss. Like anyone can come in and sign up, and you actually can distinguish yourself. So we don't do further like distinguishing for users. So really it's kind of when you're signing up, how you're distinguishing yourself between a reviewer or a consumer. But there is more to look at as far as, like, say you were offering digital review copies and you wanted to be sure a little bit about if someone is a legitimate reviewer or not. They have to, like, you have to make your profile for a review copy, so you can more deep dive into, like, is this person linking to their own blog before maybe approving them for access to your review copy, or seeing how many titles they've reviewed on the platform. So does that make sense? Like, they can self-distinguish whether you're a consumer or a reviewer, but you can also, like, when you're talking about your own review copies, you can dive in a bit deeper to be careful who you're giving access to titles to.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, no problem.
And one other question I know had come up before when we were talking about it. When you talk about ordering and inventory management, does that include or exclude warehousing and fulfillment, things like that?
Yeah, so that would be when we're talking about ordering and inventory management, we offer analytics for bookstores and libraries. So they can sign up for their own analytics program that help them with inventory management, things like what titles are stale on the shelves, what's selling the best. And then ordering takes place, like, that's one of the main, and I'll kind of get into that more with catalog services, but one of the main functions of having a catalog subscription is it opens you up to a bunch of sales tools that allow you to sell your titles to bookstores, but we don't do any sort of warehousing or fulfillment. You're really taking those orders in yourself, exporting them, and then fulfilling them however you fulfill orders. We're kind of just a tool for you to use in your process of sales.
Great, thanks for clarifying. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. All right, cool. I can move on. I know Aaron's in the chat too, if anything else comes up. So for catalog services, publishers and other user groups are welcome, like I said, to sign up for free accounts on Edelweiss. And that's going to allow you to browse the platform, and you can even create collections of your titles. Collections are a little different from catalogs in that they're only visible when you share them with someone, whereas catalogs are going to be publicly viewable and can be findable on the platform. So just something to note with that. That's a reason why it's a free account versus like a paid account. But catalog subscriptions are really our main product that's utilized by publishers. Having a catalog subscription gives you your own page on Edelweiss. You can kind of see there's a cardinal rule presses up in the top there, where you can add your own branding and create your own catalogs. It also opens you up to tons of sales and marketing tools, and I'll kind of get into a little bit more of what those are. But some of the main advantages of having a catalog subscription is that it allows your titles to be discovered on the platform. So like I talked about, some librarians only use Edelweiss for title discovery, where they're just looking to download review copies. We have lots of really cool filtering options. So you can say, I just want to look at front list titles for children's books, or, so there's a lot of ways to discover new titles. We also have a weekly newsletter that lists all of our new review copies and catalogs in Edelweiss. So that's kind of one of the main reasons is for title discovery. It's also one of the main places you can include such comprehensive title data. So you can really display everything from marketing plans to internal images, book trailers. We have like a cool feature where you can embed a video into the title description, and book trailers have become, there's an example at the bottom there, but they've become really popular with booksellers that really like to kind of have something more interactive to look at when they're taking a look through catalogs and titles. And then of course, you can also include comp titles, things like that as well. And we have a full list of kind of all of the title data you can display. If that's ever of interest, feel free to reach out for that as well. But yeah, having your titles on Edelweiss opens up the ability to have the power of the indies behind your titles. And what I really mean by that is that it is the preferred method for front list ordering for independent bookstores. So either we'll get publishers reaching out to us because they're saying, hey, like the bookstores we're working with are really asking if you can get your titles on Edelweiss, or it will be sales teams maybe pushing for it that are saying, this is, the tool that our buyers would like us to present them title information for. So it can be kind of you have the power of the indies in that way, but bigger, we also have something called 360 that allows booksellers to create email campaigns and send them out to their customer lists. And they can use the titles listed on the site to create those email campaigns. So it gives you more avenues for marketing direct to consumer through the bookseller a little bit as well, whether it be stocking your titles or using 360 to include your titles in their email campaigns. And as I kind of mentioned before, it opens up a world of sales and marketing tools for you to utilize. Some of the big ones to highlight sales-wise include our markup feature. So that allows you to mark up a catalog, add your own notes, kind of set priorities for titles, and then share that markup with specific buyers. You can also load sales contacts and receive and export orders, like I said, as well for fulfillment. So that's the big sales tools. There's also quite a few marketing tools. things like you can create showcases within catalogs, and I'll try not to get too in the weeds on all these little features, but you can create showcases. So those are really nice for like, if you have multiple titles within one series, you could maybe showcase the other titles in that series underneath, or maybe by the same author, or and sometimes by the same artist or illustrator I've seen as well. So those are kind of cool. You can have info pages on your publisher page for people to reference with information like ordering info or like how to contact you as well. And then of course it opens you up. Oh, a big point I wanted to make too is event grids. That's also one of the main uses for booksellers on our platform. When you have a catalog subscription, you can create event grids. So that's where you'll list all of your touring authors, and booksellers can then send you bids of like why they would be a good place to host your touring author. And that's one of the main uses for booksellers too, is taking a look at what touring authors they have and placing bids as well. And then, like I said, Amanda will kind of go over the advertising options that this opens you up to also in a bit. And not all advertising options require you to have a catalog subscription, so that's something to keep in mind as well. I wanted to cover this part because I know catalog subscription, it may not be right for everyone. It's important to kind of understand, you know, if it's right for you or not. So we put together a small checklist that's been helpful. The first one would be, do you have an established Onyx feed for your titles? The first step after you sign up for a catalog subscription is ingesting your title data, and we require Onyx feeds. There's also a manual title edition option. So if you don't have a ton of titles, it doesn't make sense for you to start getting a big feed going. You can manually add title information on the site. It's just something to keep in mind that it can get a little time consuming to keep that information up to date the larger your list gets. Another piece would be, do you have a dedicated sales team or a group of established buyer contacts? Though lots of users utilize Edelweiss for title discovery, they really expect the publisher to reach out and proactively interact with them by sharing markups of catalogs and kind of having an established sales relationship. You also can't receive orders on Edelweiss unless you have the person added as a contact. And Aaron in the chat, if that's not correct, I'm sure you can tell me, but I'm pretty certain you cannot accept orders, which can be a significant barrier for smaller press teams without like established sales teams. And we always kind of say, and I always think of it as like Edelweiss is a tool to help you with your sales practices, but it's really can be helpful when you're coming in with contacts, and we'll get into if there's other options if that's maybe not the best thing for you. And then of course, any small press bandwidth, do you have the manpower and time to take on catalog creation, managing of marketing resources, and doing the proactive outreach and order placing of sales? And then of course, last but not least, budget. The catalog subscriptions start at $27.50 and it's based on your title count. That minimum subscription price, I want to say it's like up to around 30 titles per year. So like 30 front lists that you're adding each year, but I'll make sure we give you the link too of how to reach out about pricing. So without those items above, it's just really important to make sure that it's something that you're going to, be worth your money and your time. With that being said, the good thing about Edelweiss is that you have options. So maybe if a catalog subscription isn't the best for you and you don't have the time or manpower to make it worth it, you can also work with a distributor who can manage your title data for you, catalog your titles in their account on Edelweiss, and utilize their established sales teams to sell your titles to their known contacts. Kind of like Jennifer was saying, there's like upsides and downsides of working with distributors, but I think, depending on your manpower and depending on your buyer contacts and things too, it can be a really nice avenue to help you make it worth it to have your titles on Edelweiss. You can also opt to do review copies and or marketing on the platform only. So catalog subscriptions are not required for all marketing options, and they're not required to offer review copies. And in my experience, review copies can make a great fit when it comes to building up your contacts and getting reviews on titles, along with a way to kind of start building some relationships with buyers. Any big questions here before we move on? If anybody, feel free to unmute if you'd like.
I have a question. So let's say you only are using for marketing and review copies, you're not paying for a catalog service. Is it still the case that you can add buyers to your contact list and receive orders, or you need to have the cataloging subscription? Okay.
Yeah, you'd need to have the cataloging subscription for like the markup features and like the sales tools.
Okay.
So adding those contacts and that. But
Okay.
I'll get into this more with review copies, but one of the really cool things about the review copies is that you get the email addresses of like people who are downloading your titles. So that could be like an opportunity to start some sort of a relationship with someone and be like, thanks for downloading our title. Like, here's how to order from us. Like, you know, how do you prefer, like kind of just getting that relationship running a little bit. I think they can be a great way to start that. If maybe, you know, not having those sales tools is like a financial barrier or like a time barrier, like I said, too.
I was wondering what you meant by marketing if you don't have cataloging services. Is that just like contacting buyers through Edelweiss, or what do you mean by marketing?
Yeah, we have tons of like advertising options. So I mean, more with that, like we have some free ad options, things like, well, the free ones I think are like your titles need to be on Edelweiss because you're adding them to lists and things that buyers might reference, like based on topics and that. But we also have, you know, if it doesn't make sense to pay for a catalog listing, but it does make sense to book a banner in the Barnes and Noble newsletter and say, like, you know, link to maybe your own website or like share your contact information. Those are options as well.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll like, that's the part I'll probably hand off to Amanda too, where we can like dive deeper into kind of all the different ad options. All right, cool. I'm going to move ahead, but definitely still leave room for questions at the end. So review copies, like I said, they're a great option no matter the size of your press. You don't have to have a catalog subscription to just offer review copies. You can offer digital versions, usually they're PDF or EPUB files, and you can also offer audio review copies if you'd like to share audiobook versions and have one available. Pricing is a $99 annual fee for review copies plus $50 per DRC upload. There is a one-time $500 setup fee if you are not listed on Edelweiss, and that goes towards setup and support. There's also discounts available for some distributed publishers on the per upload fee. So like Jennifer, or like if you're working with IPG or you're working with Ingram, a lot of times there is I believe it's usually $40 per DRC upload. So just a little discount there as well that for working with distributors. You can, with DRCs, control your own access settings. So you can make review copies available for immediate download, or you can require approval. And then we also apply a DRM privacy setting to each file once uploaded so that they can't be shared. And you can also include an expiration date for titles as well. So you could say, I want this file to expire 60 days after someone downloads it, and then it will no longer be accessible to them after those 60 days. I wanted to note as well that we have a helpful guide on how to get the most out of your review copies once posted, and I'll share that with you, Jennifer, too, or in the chat if I have a moment, just so you can take a look at that and kind of see how to get the most out of review copies. It's also important to note that you receive a free listing in our weekly newsletter that highlights all the new review copies from the week prior. So that tends to help with some downloads. There's free promotion included every time you upload a review copy, and that it's listed in the newsletter. And that newsletter has about 100,000 subscribers and a 35 to 40% open rate. Like I said, I really like review copies for publishers who are working with a distributor, or for those who a catalog subscription isn't a good fit, because it really does allow you to start building some connections with booksellers of your own. And that part about accessing downloader info, you'll have access to everybody who downloads your title. It'll tell you, as long as they've distinguished it, what kind of a user they are. You can export that information. You can do some really cool stuff with featuring reviews of your title. So if somebody leaves a really good review, you can add it to like your title listing as well. So there's some cool features within review copies. The last little bit I wanted to just talk about is that last year we launched our own web-based digital reader, and it's really improved the number of downloads on titles. It eliminated that barrier of like booksellers and librarians needing to use a third-party app in order to read a title. So it'll open right for them in a web-based browser, instead of needing to go through maybe like those who aren't as familiar with apps and things. So we've noticed a lot of uptick in just general amount of downloads on a title. We also added some improved security function with that, and some additional reader functions, things like bookmarking and highlighting, and it will auto open for you where you last were reading the title. So the reader has just given people more options as far as how they prefer to read their review copies, and make it where you don't need to like download Bluefire or another like third-party app if you're maybe not quite as familiar. Any review copy questions? Okay, cool. And I'm gonna pass it over to Amanda to chat about all of the marketing options. And I'll be back at the end to just chat a little bit about some other features too.
Super. So I do not know how to switch my video around. I have my video on, but let's see if I can, there we go. Ah, thank you. All right. So I'm really excited to talk about advertising options. We've been running ads, and we call them really promotions, for years on Edelweiss. But this coming year, 2024, we've rearranged things in a different way. We've really listened the past year, I would say year and a half, a lot to some feedback. And so we're offering different types of promotions to achieve goals of different sized publishers, because we've heard, you know, I like banners, I want to do this, I want to do this. And we just realized that there's not a one size fits all approach. So we'll talk a little bit about different things. So when we talk about advertising, we have quite a few newsletters, and then of course we have the exposure that people get when they log onto our platform, and there's different things. So just to kind of hit on some of these key points, there's newsletter advertising, banner or title banner inserts, featured titles, dedicated e-blasts, select sends, in-platform engagements, and then the book list program. So that's a whole lot. I can go into detail of each one of these, and I'm certainly happy to take questions. I'll try to keep my eye on chat a little bit if I can, but then happy to take questions at the end as well. And I don't know if I'm able to kind of advance to the next slide or not.
I was gonna say, tell me if I'm not going fast.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So we'll start a little bit with our newsletter advertising. One thing that has been very neat over the past couple of months is that we switched the format of our weekly newsletter, which was called New and Edelweiss, or goodness, I can't even think of the title that was, because it's very much the weekly greeting to me now. New and Featured in Edelweiss is what it was. But not only has the format changed, so it's more user-friendly, it's just easier to see all of the titles, but it also goes to a larger list. So prior to late summer, this was actually going to a list of just over 60,000 book professionals, and it's now going to a list of over 100,000 book professionals. So again, this is weekly, and we've changed it around so that used to you could secure a top banner in this and as well as a middle banner. But with the new format, you can secure a top banner. So that means people click on that email, they are excited to see it each week, and you can have that top space. As soon as people open it, they see that. But then when people look down through that email, there are different genre sections. So there you could do a section in our a banner in our adult fiction section, the nonfiction section, a children's section, and then the YA section. So those are the banner options that we have, because we know that people are going to see what's on top, but then they're going to go and look at the particular interest that they have. And so those, to kind of let you all know, kind of look at pricing here, because I know somebody's going to ask, so I'm looking at on two different screens right here. But the pricing on those is, let me look it up here. I don't think I have it actually. Oh, here we go. 1,265 for the top, and then it's 495 for the sections. But we also have featured titles. Now, featured titles is something that we did with the prior weekly newsletter that we're continuing. Featured titles are just wonderful because not only do they exist in the weekly greeting, but then they're also in the review copies lane, the featured lane there for the week of the newsletter. So you get them in two places. They're a very reasonable price. So they're $412, and they're very much toward the top of that newsletter. So we've got a lot of options going on with that one. In addition to the weekly greeting newsletter, we also have targeted community newsletters. That's what we call them now. We might be kind of renaming those a little bit. Sometimes you'll hear us refer to those as our professional group newsletters. But for the moment, until the end of this year, the way this works is if you go to a link that I can share here in a few minutes after I'm done talking, we've got different genres. So you'll see that maybe next month we'll have something like fiction, then we'll have romance on the calendar. We do a few of those a month, and that's going through the end of this year. Within each of those newsletters, we've got different banner choices, such as top, middle, bottom. We also have featured reviews and author spotlights. So that's a different way to get content in there, that if you don't want to just do a banner. And by the way, all of our banners, they are, you can click off to Edelweiss, but they're also rotating. So you can, if you choose to make it this way, you can make it an animated GIF, so that it, you can showcase multiple things and make it interactive and fun. So these community newsletters, as we're calling them now, we're doing the genres through the end of this year. But one thing we do now, and we're continuing through this next year, is we reach professional communities. And people really love this because we have ABA that we do, and we're doing that and library reads every other month in 2024. So it's very, very regular. This year we've done them almost every other month, but it's not so set in stone as it is going forward in 2024. We also have a list of Barnes & Noble employees, and people love this because, and we're getting engaged with Barnes & Noble regarding how they want to position that and how we want to work with them and really develop a relationship to work closer with them on that in 2024. But that's something that's going to be monthly. So we'll have all three of those moving forward into 2024, and we're excited about that. There will be a way to reach the genre communities still in 2024, and I can talk about that here in a few minutes. So going further there, and I want to make sure I'm going to click on the chat so that okay. Oh, somebody's asking. I just want to make sure that I yes. So we have tons of different genres. There are so many different groups, and I can actually share a PDF here at the end that has the full list of everything. And you can see what's on the calendar, and also there's actually a way that you can reach these lists individually with just your message going forward into 2024. Monthly bookseller and librarian newsletters is also something that we offer right now. I would say these are two of our most in demand when it comes to advertising, because in these newsletters, we share tips and tricks about Edelweiss. So they're very targeted. They've been going for quite some time now, so they've got a great following. And there are 3 different banners there. And then one thing I'll say is they can reserve quite far in advance. So that's something that's mentioned. Yeah. There's 3 in the bookseller and 2 in the librarian. But last I checked, and I could be wrong, I think maybe bookseller had a few, maybe December, there might be some left. And librarian was booking out a little bit too. So that's going to continue. Another thing that we're offering this next year in 2024 is the reviewer newsletter. We've done that this past year and several years back. So it isn't a new thing. It's just that we haven't said, hey, this is happening, monthly, or this is happening every other month. We've done it probably quarterly. It's been very popular. And so we're excited to bring that forward and offer that same sort of opportunity to reviewers this next year. So we can go forward from there. I know that's a lot about newsletters because we have a lot of newsletters, but they're all unique and really interesting. So other things to note are title banner inserts. If you haven't done title banner inserts, I really encourage it. They are just a great, think of it as an investment. So a long-term strategy. If you want to get the word out and you really want to blast the word out, banners, something like that, and newsletter is a great way to go. But if you're thinking long-term strategy, title banner inserts are really good. When booksellers are scrolling through Edelweiss, it stands out. And the good thing is that it stays in Edelweiss as long as your title is in Edelweiss. It can be, a rotating graphic, and you can also click on one of the title banner inserts. So you can click and have a URL, have it go off from there. And I'm trying to think if we've actually changed anything about these. I don't think we've changed a single thing about these going forward. People, like I said, this is kind of something that I say, if you can do them, if you can grab them, that's great. As many as possible is even better. $220 is the price of these. So it's a lower barrier to entry, but this is a great example that Allison has here because the contrast and the pop against that white background looks really nice. So much about advertising is, how does it look? How does it look in comparison with the cover? How does it look in comparison with the background? And how does it engage the audience and make people want to click? Featured titles, we talked about that. They're in the weekly greeting newsletter, and they're also at the top of the review copies tab. And that gives you a little feel for how they display right now. And then you can click on them and they'll go right over to that title. All right, we'll go to the next slide from there. Okay. So here's some new stuff. This is new, not just for 2024, but we already have people reserving these, and you can reserve them for this end part of 2023, because I can't believe we're already in September. It's still blowing my mind that we're mid-September now. Dedicated e-blasts. So I mentioned that we moved our list and we went from 60,000 people over to 100,000 people on our largest list. So the dedicated e-blast goes to that biggest list, over 100,000 book professionals. That list, that e-blast, is where we would work with you to take whatever content it is, whatever titles, it can be multiple titles, and figure out what you want to send out to that group. So it could be that you send us, hey, we want to showcase these 10 titles, and provide us some graphics, and we work with you to put that together in a newsletter style format. So it's really, a lot of the content creation is on us, as long as you all tell us what the text should be. So that's one thing we can do. Another thing we can do is just one big animated graphic that looks like a book cover or something like that, and then send it out. So it's a very flexible option, but the key thing is largest list. The select send is the you pick the list option. And I will send over in a PDF here in a second. I don't know if it's been put in chat yet, but the link that goes to our promotions kit, which has the full list of all of our communities. So that could be a professional list, that could be a genre community list, and we have those separated so that they start at $2,000 if it's a small community. What that means to us is that it's under 10,000 people. If it's between that 10,000 and just under 20,000 person mark, that's the next price tier. And then over 20,000 is our larger price tier, but it's still less expensive than the dedicated eBlast. With that option, that select send, you do an animated graphic. So a lot of people would want this to look probably like a cover image that kind of rotates, and it's very eye-catching. And again, it's just, both of these options are you're the only advertiser. It's just your message going directly to a list of ours, and we help you with that process. And in terms of those as well, we can provide the data on how many people opened and what the click rate was. The other thing is in-platform engagements. If you've logged on to Edelweiss before and seen a pop-up that has, hey, join us for this webinar, that's an engagement. So far, we've only used those to share information with you all about something that we want you all to know about. So an example was the designer webinar that we had today, but we're opening those so that publishers can secure them to promote their title or promote a collection, whatever it is. Those are available, and so you can target booksellers and librarians, and we're really excited to do that, and again work with you to make sure your creative is beautiful. We're also making sure that when we do that, we're making, selecting it to where it hits people just one time, so you don't have to worry about somebody logs in 3 times in a day and they see your ad over and over and over and they're annoyed. And we don't want that experience, because we don't do that on our end when we're communicating. It's a one-time thing, but it is highly effective, because then you're reaching people when they're buying, when they're doing their work, or whatever it is within Edelweiss right then. We're excited about that. So lots of exciting new things going on. I love having conversations about all of these because strategy is where I'm really passionate about. I want to help get people's titles in front of the right audiences, and you can rely on us as a resource to help with that, and even just have the conversations about what makes sense or what should we try. You can always reach out to marketing@abovethetreeline.com with anything promotions related, or also me. My email is amurphy, AMURPHY, @abovethetreeline.com too. And I talk with a lot of people every week, and I truly enjoy looking at things, analyzing the data, seeing what worked and didn't. And if we have that relationship going, then I can really help pinpoint what's working, what we should do, see if there's any extra slots we could get you into, and yeah, looking at all that stuff. And I can't remember, Allison, if the next slide's mine or not. Book list program. All right, do you want me to do this one, Allison, or is this a you one? I'm happy to talk about this. This is an exciting thing. I heard you. Okay. So one thing that we have that's just really neat is you've probably seen this again. This is an example of an engagement. If you've seen this come up on your screen, although imagine that your engagement that you would do would be a beautiful, cover image. But we do calls for submissions routinely, where it's, we add things, our publisher newsletter. So we might do a call for submissions for, it says poetry for the new year. This is something that we have that's coming up, and different things. So it's a way to get, submit to a list and get your title included in something for free. And it's really, we try to do different things like this throughout the year, but we have them in rotation. So keep an eye out. And it's another reason to log into Edelweiss and, really check out what's going on. If you have any questions about those, we are really trying to keep those in front of people. So yeah, so the lists are for booksellers and librarians, 2 titles per imprint, and then you must be on Edelweiss in order to do that. So that's the criteria there. People really do have great things to say about that. And again, there is the marketing email address. It's easy to remember, marketing@abovethetreeline.com. That link is where you will find the PDF, which talks about promotions, has all of the information, all the nitty gritty. And if there's ever any changes, we update it at that URL right there as well. And I'll monitor chat and see what questions there are too.
Awesome. I'm happy to grab the rest here. I hope that was helpful. And yeah, like Amanda said, we've been using these QR codes just in case it's easier for you, but also the link is right there, where you can get that full list of all the communities and like the pricing for each option, as well as if you wanted details on how to book promotions that can be a little bit different if you're a distributed publisher and things. So all of that's there, but again, do not hesitate to reach out and ask us questions too. I didn't want to bog you down with like all of the too much information with this, but also wanted to make sure you are aware of just all of the options available to publishers on the platform. So these are all like additional add-ons to a catalog subscription, just to be aware of. Designer allows you to create custom templates that you can export in various formats for beautiful catalogs and presentations. We did a webinar on Designer today, so if that's something that's interesting, I'm happy to pass that recording along. Analytics is really a powerful sales tool that gives you reporting on how your titles are doing in the indie market. So all of I think it's around 600 bookstores that have signed up to use analytics with us. It'll give you reporting into how your titles are doing at those stores. Edelweiss 360, this is something you get access to a free version of for free with both a catalog subscription or a review copy subscription. The free version is super great for just tracking like how many views you're getting on your catalog, who's downloading your titles, like I talked about with review copies. The premium version turns it into more of a like direct sales and marketing tool. So it will give you a list of targets. So people who have interacted with comp titles of your title. So really like, you know, somebody who'd be great to share a review copy with because you know they like similar titles, and it'll actually allow you to message them through there. So 360 is something to maybe think about, because it does allow you some like ways to build your contact list up with people you don't know already, if that makes sense. You can message people that are great targets for you. Again, happy to share more about any of this stuff. And then last but not least, collaborative consumer marketing, we call it CCM. This is a way for you to incentivize bookstores that use our Bookseller 360 program I talked about earlier, where they send email campaigns to their customer list. You can say, hey, if you include our title in your customer list, we'll include a certain amount of marketing dollars towards that to include. It's kind of a cool program because you set your own budget. So there's no like, at this point, no minimum requirement to sign up for CCM other than you have to have a catalog subscription, but you could say, I want to put $200 towards this. And it's just going to show booksellers like that there are like marketing dollars for them if they include your titles in their campaigns to their customer lists. So again, a little overwhelming, but feel free to reach out if there's something you wanted more information on. And with that, this is a great way to reach out. This link here for request more information. I'm also happy to post my own email address in the chat if you want to reach out, and I'll get you in the right hands of who can answer your question best. The QR code here, this is just will take us right to your request information where you can say, I want to learn more about this or that. And then we wanted to pass along $100 off a promotion of your choice to everybody for just attending. And like I said, it's kind of like something that you could use for a promotion, whether you're on Edelweiss or not. So I'll make sure I pass that promo code along to you, Jennifer, along with some resources.
Okay, thanks. I'll put it, when we post the notes and recording, I'll put it with that information.
Great.
One question that I had off the bat, can you speak to like all these marketing tools? Do you mostly recommend them for front list, or do you have any success stories of people effectively marketing backlist and like continuing to sell titles using these tools?
Yeah, I can answer that. we actually do have successful stories about backlist titles, and gosh, there's too many. So the majority is front list, I will say that. But we do, in terms of the newsletter advertising and things like that. So it's a real mix in terms of what the conversations I have with people, what they're looking for, what we, everything that they're doing. Of course, it depends more on what audience. We do see more front list in the newsletters. When it comes to title inserts, things like that, it's all over the place, because they stay in Edelweiss forever. But yeah, Allison, I don't know if you can think of any specific examples. I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think definitely, like, when stores are looking for titles, most of the time they're probably looking for front list. But like Amanda said, not always, and especially once we started doing this free book list program, where you can add like titles based on topics and things as well. I've seen some really cool stuff with like people submitting backlist, and then a bookstore looks at that list and they're like, oh, this is going to be perfect for this awareness month that we have coming up, and we haven't stocked this title. So I think it's kind of that classic like marketing state of mind thing where you want to decide on like, what's your goal for this ad before you do it? Because I would maybe communicate an ad about a backlist title in a different way than I would communicate an ad about a front list title, if that makes sense. Just maybe saying like, hey, you may have missed this the first time around. Like, this could be great to stock for this upcoming holiday you have, or something like that.
Yeah, and another title in a series is a great opportunity also to get the word out there again. So that's another example that we see a lot of times where it's just, a repositioning of things. But yeah, I can think of a particular, I'm trying to think of what it was, but there was one, it was in a children's newsletter. It was a middle banner in a children's newsletter, and it was a backlist title. And we were surprised at how much traction it got, So what I find overall is people, they find their spot, it's with advertising, they find their niche with us and what the thing that they really like, the thing that works for them, and then they stick with that. And for some folks, they find that trying a little bit here and there is what they do. But we do have people who regularly select certain newsletters of ours, and that's where they find success.
Anybody want to jump in a question? I'm going back to the chat here because I feel like there was a lot going on in the chat.
I think somebody was asking more about CCM, Allison. If you want to talk more to that.
Yeah, let me see. CCM.
While you're looking, I will say, based on Victoria's comment also, it does seem like a very complex product. And I guess you've got so many features and so many options for things. Is it, somebody getting involved in this, is it good if they're talking to, like one of you, a human being, to say, here's what I'm trying to do, here's my budget, how do I best do this?
That's kind of yes, like I would say that's kind of what's been nice about us being a small company in general, is that like there is actually only like about 30 of us, and like only really 1 or 2 people answer inquiries that come in from new publishers. So like it will be actually like not just like a one size fits all situation. Like I think there's huge benefit to you being like, this is who we are, this is like what we're dealing with, like what is the best thing for us, because we really like sincerely do not want people to sign up for things that are not going to be beneficial to them. So I think that's the way to go. And like I kind of view marketing and like they're two, almost like I would almost do both. Like I would chat with somebody through our support thing about like, hey, what's like our best options service wise, and then marketing is almost like a whole nother beast as far as like marketing wise, what would you recommend for us promotions? And that's where Amanda is like amazing at that too, kind of chatting about your budget.
Okay, so one of Lee's questions from the chat was, do publishers get a list of folks that clicked on the blast to be able to follow up with them? So like from the email blast, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we don't provide a list of email addresses. However, one thing that's really great that we do, and I think that differentiates us a lot from others, is we have a lot of data on who is in that particular list. So let's say that you're looking at whoever you want to reach, whether it's our largest list, the weekly list, or it's fiction list or nonfiction, whatever. I can actually take you in and kind of look at our system. It's called Communicator, and look at a list and look at the breakdown of that list and who you're reaching. So we can't show the email addresses, but what we can do is say, hey, this is the percentage of booksellers. This is the percentage of librarians, and then look at booksellers and look at the makeup of just the booksellers. Hey, this is how many are this particular type. This is how many ABA members we have, librarians. This is how many are public librarians, and everything you can imagine is really in there. How active they've been in Edelweiss, how many DRC downloads they've done in the past 12 months. So we have a whole lot of data to offer, but we can't offer that email information afterwards.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
I saw it in the chat. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I asked a question about
Yeah.
whether you can disaggregate the list down to the point where you could focus on a particular group of academics. For example, we have a 3-volume work, a political autobiography by somebody who's pretty well known nationally, but we're a small press, and what we'd like to do is be able to get it out and offer review copies to political science professors around the country and see if there's interest. Because obviously, if they pick it up to use it with a class, that's a big sale. So, could you do that kind of disaggregating?
I don't believe we have like the ability to deep dive, like as far as like, I know we have the different genre community. That's probably what I would recommend is like, I'm not sure if there's a political science one. Is there?
Yeah, we have a political science one, but you're right. Like we can't go deeper than that, at least at this point in time.
Yeah, it would do just kind of like the bubbles that we have available. But like you said, if somebody downloaded a review copy and like you saw they were an academic, like they might have listed like more information about who they are, like on their profile. Like it could say some information like where you could, but it's not you'd have to look at kind of each profile. So I'd probably more recommend going through like Amanda said, the bubbles of like, we have a political science newsletter, like that'd probably be the one to do something with, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
We had a question from Colin in the chat. How long do review titles remain available or relevant after they're first listed?
Review titles.
So like if you're not, I assume he means if you're not subscribing to a catalog subscription and you're listing them as review titles.
That's been kind of cool and interesting. Like I've seen people do different things. I think like booksellers are really wanting to see review copies, at least 3 months probably before buying or before publication date. So for like front list titles, you want to get it out there as soon as possible so that they have time to read the title, check it out, potentially review it, reach out to you, or you follow up with them depending. So ahead of that, I think I've seen people though, like once something goes into backlist, I've seen publishers do really cool things of like, hey, like we didn't get the opportunity to share this earlier, and then sending a huge blast out to just get more attention. I've also seen some really cool like banner ads where publishers have said, here are all of our current review copies, and like created a collection where you could like go and look at things that way. So kind of bouncing back a little bit to that, like it depends on what your goal is for the title, but naturally I would say things are relevant till up and around like publication date, unless you're doing something larger with it that you want to promote it a bit more.
I'm just shaking my head because it's such an exhausting treadmill, like of all these new books constantly coming out. I think
having them in time, I'm sure too, like having the review copy in time to get it out early sometimes. Yeah,
I don't know if that answers Colin's question. Like, so let me piggyback on that a little bit. So, but does the listing expire at any point? Like,
the listing, you control that. So you can leave it up as long as you'd like, Yeah, that's completely up to you how long you want to list the title for, and you have complete control of like when you want to, you can set, I believe, like settings for like, we'd like this to automatically come down on publication date, or you can set for like a specific date in the future or something like that as well. And like I said, some people can leave it up for 2+ years. It's totally up to you. It's not like it immediately or will go away automatically for any
But are
reason.
you charged by the month?
No, it's just the per upload fee. You're also not charged for like a certain amount of downloads. Like the only fee you'll pay with review copies is just to upload it.
So I have a question. I am brand new, small press with the first book coming out in January. And so I am wondering if like the reviews that are on the site, do we have the right to like copy them and put them in like our like promotional things as well as people see them on the site?
Yeah,
Or-
that's a great question. And so when somebody leaves a review on Edelweiss, they actually choose if they'd like to share it with the publisher. And so we've kind of always seen it as like, if they're sharing it with you, then you're open to use it in your marketing materials. And like I
Okay.
said, you can actually even like feature it like on the site too, so that it like becomes part of your title data if you'd like, really easily. But that's how I've always viewed it, is like if they're open to sharing it with you. And I think lots of publishers use the reviews left there in further marketing materials.
Wait, so they can choose to not share it with the publisher? Does that mean it would be viewable only to like other book buyers and stuff? And not the
People with
publisher?
Yeah,
Okay.
people within their community, like it would still show you like a bookseller has reviewed this, but it just wouldn't show you like exactly what it says if they didn't choose to share it with you.
But other reviewers could read it?
People within their community, yes. So like, so you can join, I don't want to go on a huge tangent, but there we have something called community too, where people can join like all these different communities. They're almost like Facebook groups, like based on like something you're interested in. So you can you can choose also from that screen after you leave a review, like I want to share this review with the fiction community. And you can also, and I think automatically it's shared with other people within your organization. So like say I'm part of a bookstore, other people in my bookstore could see my reviews, like my colleagues.
That's interesting. So there's like a social element for the reviewers and booksellers as well? I didn't know that. That's cool. Do they use it in that way?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I would say it hasn't like launched off like as far as like being like crazy used, but it grows sort of all the time with like we'll go in there and see somebody started a conversation about this title, or so that's been kind of cool. And that was actually the thing, like I was thinking of chatting about potentially like for you guys too, because they're public facing. So there's potential for like you guys could have your own MiPA community that everyone could join, and you could invite booksellers to, and it's all free. And you could, post lists of titles based on like,
Yes, okay, that's what we'll be
yeah.
talking about in a week and a half or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's, I don't want to, again, get too much in the weeds, but I could totally pass along some more info. We call it community. So, of where you could learn a little bit more about community and jump in on that too.
And actually, one thing just to jump in on with community, it's a great place to post events as well. So publishers, booksellers, librarians can post events there for free. So if you have an author chat or anything like that, it can be virtual or in person. There's a mix of both, obviously mostly virtual these days, but you can add it in community.
Can I just ask a follow-up question to that? So, for those community promoted titles or lists, that each individual book would still need to somehow otherwise be in the Edelweiss universe from those publishers or those distributors. Got it. Just needed to confirm that.
Yeah, IBPA, I've talked a little bit with IBPA about this before too, because I think it would be I really just think it's a cool idea for all publisher associations, because it can kind of like get you guys to they would have to be on Edelweiss. Like there's not an easy way for the titles not on Edelweiss, but it's a nice way for publisher organizations to like to work together to create some cool lists of like promoting what you guys all together like have coming up, or you know, and then you could also like share that page with booksellers and librarians and be like, make sure you check out our list of upcoming titles or lists on this, you know, history or awareness month we have coming up, things like that too.
I
Yeah.
have a question, but I didn't want to interrupt whoever was speaking.
Go for it, Michael.
Okay, thank you. This is really, really, really interesting. And I have just a specific kind of question. And I've said this before about 10 times, I think this evening, we're really small. And we have a small, wonderful, dedicated editorial board of 4 or 5 people, depends on the day of the month. And when we talk about marketing and advertising, you know, money always comes up, and we all just roll our eyes back in the back of our heads, and to think about a budget with a small balance in the bank in the first place is really difficult. My point here, several of them, but one of them, our major independent bookstore in town has in the past been really open to local presses, local writers, and encouraging readings and so forth. In recent years, it's become tighter and tighter to get in, to do. I mean, we're maybe 1 or 2. There might be 2 or 3 presses here in town. I think maybe we're the only one actually that does literary work and so forth. You know, in my opinion, we should be promoted more by the bookstore. So my question is, and I'm sorry I'm taking so long on this, is there a kind of a minimal way that we can participate in Edelweiss in specific cost able ways? That's a really bad sentence, but
Cost effective.
that would that would also be a kind of leverage with that bookstore.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to be a little subversive here. Kansas is a great place to be subversive, so I'm just trying to do it in the bookseller world.
Yeah. I know my gut, and I'm curious if any of our other Edelweiss people here have other thoughts on this, but my gut has always been like, if you're gonna do one thing as a small press, like I would probably recommend review copies, because it puts so much in your own hands of like what you'd like to do with them. And it could be a way that you're like, you know, it shows some legitimacy of like, you know, you've spent the advertising dollars to put it on Edelweiss, and then like if you share it with that store and they use Edelweiss too, they'll be like, oh, like I just think it does a lot for like, you'll get free promotion by being included in the newsletter. You'll get the list of everybody who downloads your review copies, so you can start to make those connections a little bit like I talked about. You'll get reviews that you can highlight, and you know, it's not magic. Like it does also still take like using, I would say, that checklist to say like, make sure you get the most out of your review copies, like sharing it with people like that bookstore, like then actually like going to them and sharing the link with them. But that's just my gut on like what's always been kind of the number one like bang for your buck as far as like a way to open a lot of doors with like flexibility of being able to send those review copies to as many people as you'd like, and should then give you something tangible with those email addresses to like do something with going forward.
And we could contact either one of the two of you or somebody on staff that would lead us through that.
Yeah.
It's my wife who has a PhD, not me. So I need my hand held through some of this stuff. And so we can do this another time. In other words, I just wanted the answer that you gave was great. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll make sure, like I said, I'll send maybe Jennifer too. I'll also send you the slides, potentially, because they have all those links. Like on that last one, it had the like request information link, or you can reach out to me or Amanda. Will always get you like in the hands of kind of who you need to speak with. So,
yeah, that would be great. I think someone posted in the chat they were looking for the slides, so I can post that up on the
Yeah.
summary page.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm happy to share that too.
Any other questions? Did I miss anything in the chat here, guys?
I had a quick question. If
Okay.
there's time. We're very interested in the catalog option, and I want to make sure that when we jump in, we're considering, we know we're already going to be doing review copies, but the catalog is a big time commitment because we have over 200 backlist, and then we're publishing about 14 to 16 per year.
And we do not do Onyx. We tried it, we hated it. So
Yeah.
We're with us being a small press, it's too big for us, and so we would be doing the manual upload for it. I want to make sure that when we take the dive into the catalog, because it's a big expense for us, that we're ready and that I'm understanding it correctly, so that when we do, we utilize it and we're ready for it. So it's my understanding that we'll input everything in there, and then it really just serves as a digital catalog for people to discover our titles, right? I get a little confused when some of the email communications that were received talked about that we need to be ready to do orders and the sales stuff.
Yeah.
And that part's confusing me a little. So my expectation is when we input it, it's there, it's visible, we can share it with people. Are we supposed to be doing something else with it that I'm not understanding?
Yes, and this is a good question. So yes, it will be there and it will be visible, but and publish and again, like librarians, booksellers for sure could be like looking for new titles when they're posted, looking for new catalogs, but it's very rare that like they can't actually just like place an order with you just from viewing something. Like it's really a tool for like your sales practices. So it's something to really think about, because it can be hard to really get the return of investment that you're going to spend on that without like this crazy proactive effort of like what IPG does for, like Jennifer, like we talked about, like what IPG does when you're distributed by them. They're creating those catalogs, but then their sales team is going in and marking up those catalogs and sharing those marked up catalogs with their buyers, who are then having a conversation with them where an order is placed. That order is exported and then fulfilled in their own order fulfillment system. So it's something like you can still get a lot of like marketing kind of highlight out of it, but I feel like it can be hard to get the full kind of return of investment of like getting orders placed in that without a sales team and without coming in with those contacts, which can be why it's like nice to go through a distributor and work with a distributor to get on the platform.
One other question with that is, if you just do the review copies, at least to start, do we still have the ability on those listings to do, because we've looked at some of the publisher catalogs and stuff, and the amount of information that you allow to post is like really incredible and a big thing for us. Can we do that with just a review copy, or do you have to have the catalog option to be able to put, the keywords and all that other kind of stuff in there?
No, that you can still like part of you posting that review copy, like your first step, if you're a review copy only publisher, is actually going to be like building out your title listing. So in the same way you would have manually added that stuff before, like your summaries, your comp titles, all of that, you'll do the same thing so that it'll still be displayed. It just won't be like you won't have the catalog listing like we talked about. You'll still have that tab title listing where you can list as much as you'd like with the title for the review copy.
Okay, and then just real quickly, so we currently use NetGalley. I'm going to assume we wouldn't be able to import our sales contacts from that list that we have to yours. Is that a possibility? Because we have a very large contact list. We just don't want, we're interested in trying Edelweiss as well.
You totally can. It's like the same, well, with review copies, you're not going to be able to import contacts. That would be with like the catalog function to
I
have.
meant for the catalog.
Yeah. So with the catalog function, like just we don't communicate with NetGalley, and that you couldn't like say like send this to Edelweiss, but you could, if you exported the list, you can easily import the same list of contacts.
Okay, cool.
However
All right.
you build them up. Yeah.
Okay, great.
We have
Thank you
spent
for
a
that.
lot of time building our list through that. So.
Yeah,
because
I'm
we were-
sure.
we
Yeah.
just came on Edelweiss. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Go ahead, Lee.
I was curious, when you look across the catalog of participating publishers for the mid-size and indie publishers, what percentage of each catalog is backlist compared to front list? Because I'm thinking like for a publisher that has like Joni, not to use you as an example, but to use you as an example, 15 new titles a year. So they have like probably 7 new titles in the fall season or something. Like, what are you seeing as the length of the catalogs? Are many publishers that have 100 backlist titles doing their 7 new and then all 100 of the backlist, or are they like, what's the proportion? Because you get to see across tons of publishers.
Yeah, I would say usually, again, it has a lot to do with what you're using the catalog for. So I've seen like some really cool like best of backlist catalogs, or like maybe you'll make a catalog, like a couple backlist catalogs based on themes and things as well. But a lot of what we see is strictly front list catalogs that come out because they're being used for sales. So it'll be like, and some publishers only have 2 like selling seasons or something that they're releasing catalogs in. Some may only have 1 where you're going to put them all together at the same time and use that same catalog or build off of it and be like, this is our full 2024 like front list. So if that makes sense, like I don't see a lot of like just throwing the backlist into that like big catalog just to like have it be a big catalog. I think it's more about like what you're trying to feature. And so you'll see those, giant omnibus catalogs from like a PRH or something where, because they're releasing tons of new catalogs this season. But for smaller mid-sized presses, I also see like a front list catalog that only has 10 titles in it or something, which is completely fine. And I think probably more expected from booksellers than like maybe having that backlist. I'd more see the backlist used as like comps and things like of a title within that than maybe or like those best of backlist catalogs are awesome and like used a lot too.
So follow-up question, of when somebody is putting their catalog on Edelweiss, but they're not doing the additional bells and whistles and promotions, is there like an average number of like views that their catalog is getting, or is there no such thing? Is this like asking how long is a piece of string?
Yeah, we don't have averages. I think strictly because it's so vastly different, like content of what kind of titles you're listing. Yeah, we've never actually run that to like have an average, because I also think it's so much has to do with what you're doing with it. Like I said, kind of when we were talking with Joni too, like if you just post a catalog, it only means so much. Whereas like if you're posting it and then doing proactive efforts with it, it's going to get a lot more traction than just someone stumbling upon it. It doesn't really work that way. It also is in some ways like a Facebook page, in that like you could put it out there for your business and people might stumble upon it, but like you doing a lot of sharing of it is going to like make a huge impact.
That's really helpful to hear. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
I don't know, Jennifer, how long we can go here, but this is kind of a funny thing. I don't think it's probably, I don't think we're the only press that faces this, but I've written down 3 to 6 months before publication you start marketing. Okay. We're the kind of press that gets a manuscript and 6 months later it's published. So there is no marketing. I mean, so this conversation is getting under my skin, I suppose, in a good way, and it is helping me to get my head organized a little bit. But so, planning something 6 months ahead that hasn't even been sent to me is hard to do. So thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I worked in dog training for years before I did this, and it was a hard business for me to wrap my head around for quite some
Well,
time.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Dog training. Yeah. And it
Okay.
was yeah, and it was a hard business for me to wrap my head around because of all of these little pieces, like you said, and there's so many. So I feel like actually, like to your point there, I actually feel like your guys' group and like having MiPA is probably a great resource for chatting through like those difficulties of like, how do you get this title ahead of these times, and I guess like peers can be a really great resource for like, how'd you make this happen? Who's helping you with this? Like, that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
So I have a question, just because I have to think back to one of your original slides, and that's fine, is you said that when people sign up, they say they're a reviewer or they're going to be a discoverer. And so I'm wondering, as a review copy person, because obviously I'm only going to have one book, so that might be where I start. And so would everyone be able to do a search and maybe find it? Like if they were searching for the topic of my book, would they stumble upon it? Or is it only like the review people that see it?
No, anyone can.
Okay.
Like once it's listed as a review copy, anybody can. And like I said, there are some like really cool like features on Edelweiss. Like if I'm a buyer that's only buying for the fiction section of a store, like I might filter for just like all the new review copies that are fiction. And like, so that should help with discoverability in that way. But also, again, totally like make sure you look at that checklist about how to get the most out of your review copies, because it's also still just kind of like the catalogs. It's not magic. Like you do still need to like do some sharing and but yes, anybody can find it, not just reviewers or consumers, booksellers, librarians too.
Okay.
I wanted to ask too, you kept mentioning that the markup feature with the catalogs, like what does that mean? Just a salesperson adding a personal note to it, or what does that mean?
Yeah, it's kind of funky. It's like in the the old way it worked is having like a printed catalog that literally sometimes reps would write personal notes on,
Like a post-it or whatever.
Yeah, and so it's essentially that, like they may say like some really awesome reps would maybe be writing some stuff about like they know their store, so they're saying like, hey, this will be good for you guys because of your location, or because you sell fiction really well, or you sell crime novels and fantasy really well. Like this could be, they could write that. They're also maybe pointing out like confidential information in those markup things because it's only being shared between like the rep and the buyer. So they might share like print runs of a title if they want to share like, this one's going to have this, we're putting this much into this print run and that. So we always like there's like 4 features to a markup. You can make notes like we're talking about. You can also set, Aaron just put some info in the chat, but you can set priorities for a markup. You can also add tags. So things like, I'm trying to think of what's good tag. Like if there's discounts offered maybe for certain titles, you could tag them with the same tag. And I'm forgetting another element of a markup, but there's another thing you can do too.
Did you say title priority?
I think I did. Priorities, tags, notes. Is there something else?
There are suggested order quantities if you're working directly with buyers. That's another piece. Not technically part of the markup, but they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, you can include if you wanted to like say, you know, this, you might be good for you guys to have 4 of these, or, you know, that too.
So I mean, is the markup supposed to be like a tool, or like, I'm thinking of it as like a psychological tool, like these buyers get a notification and then they have to check that. Like, is that how they receive it? Like,
yeah, and it's sort of, honestly, like it's sort of like expected too. Like they are sort of also like used to that being the way that a catalog is shared with them. Like a marked up catalog is then shared, and a lot of times then a rep and a store will have a call, and they'll actually like maybe walk through the markup together sometimes. Other times a store may just read through it and then place an order. Kind of depends on the relationship between like you and the store. And actually them expecting it also depends on the relationship between you and the store. So that's what it's made to, like, work with the flexibility of what your audience is wanting, sort of, and what they're expecting.
all right, we're down to the last couple minutes. Any last questions from anybody? This was a lot of information for sure.
I have one quick question for the review copy. Is there anywhere when I upload a title where one of the challenges we're facing is trying to give content for reviewers? Is there anything on the checklist where I can include some of the content automatically on your upload interface, or is that something I have to include in a Dear Reader letter?
I think you can include like as much info on the title data as you'd like. And I think like, meaning like you could include deep information about like marketing plans and like review.
No, I mean
Yeah.
specifically like the content. Like a lot of reviewers are sensitive, like there's sexual abuse or if there's language in a
Yes.
review. And then even if you include a Dear Reader letter, they want to crucify you in your review sometimes, which we deal with. So I'm just saying, is there anything on your interface, or maybe just a suggestion for some of those?
My gut with that would be like in the title info, like I'm talking about, like you could include like trigger warnings for this title, or like this, like as part of the summary, or as part, you know, yeah,
so
you
could space for that. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So I would include that, or like you said, if you're sending out like review copies to people, I don't think it hurts to also double include it there too, to say,
Okay. All right.
Yeah, you can never make people read things. So it sort of depends on if they see it or not.
Right. Okay, great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Victoria put a question here. I have 3 titles with new ISBNs and a new imprint. So it sounds like I think they were previously listed with Edelweiss. Do I need to re-upload these and pay per title, or or alternately, can you just update it, or is that the question?
Something cool that we actually didn't talk about with review copies is, say, like, I don't know if this will apply so much, but is if you had like an old format that you then wanted to switch out for a new, like maybe you had like a kind of like rough manuscript to start, and then you wanted to like put a more finalized, like pretty PDF version, you can swap that out, but it does have to be the same ISBN. So in Victoria, in your case, if it's the same titles that you've paid for before and there hasn't been changes to them, I'm sure we could figure something out as far as like not charging you again for the exact same upload, as long as it's not a different title. Is that what you're going to say, Aaron?
Yeah, technically we charge once per ISBN, but in special cases like that, we can accommodate that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been really impressed that you guys are from within our region and from my state, and it's also cool to hear how flexible you are with stuff like that. So it's good to get to know you guys and learn more. Any last questions before we wrap it up for this evening?
I do have one question that just kind of came up with the ISBNs. Okay. So when we release a title, we typically release hardcover, softcover, and ebook. And obviously they all ISBNs. So when we upload it, we would always upload it with the ISBN for the hardcover, but can we list the other ISBNs, or are you not allowed to do that?
You can list the other ISBNs as related titles, like as part of the title info. So you could say like like just so it's all together in one place, but you will be charged like per ISBN of uploading review copies. So I probably wouldn't recommend like
It's the
uploading
same
the
exact
same.
book. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the same exact
Yeah.
book. It's just a
Yeah.
different ISBN. I just wanted to make sure we could actually list them. So
Yes, you can. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'm gonna sneak in here again. It just dawned on me. When you were talking about the banners, if let's see, if you put an ad in with, say, Poets and Writers magazine, and they will basically do all the artwork, So what I'm asking is, who does the banners? Does the publisher have to go and dig into Canva and give you some kind of template, or do you have templates, or so who does that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So most of the time, the publisher has a graphic designer that they work with on their end, and they send us the creative. However, we do have a few freelance graphic designers that we know that we refer people to, and they're very good at turning things around fast. So if somebody comes to us and they don't have somebody that they typically use, we get them over to somebody, and we've had very good results with that as well.
So the person that does our formatting and layout of the design of the book could also do that banner. Right?
Yeah, right. Definitely, certainly. If they've done the layout and then they have skills probably in any design thing, and that would be an easy thing for them. They'd already have the artwork and everything that they need. So yeah,
Right.
and it doesn't have to be, we do say you can do an animated, a rotating banner, but it can also be a static one. So yeah, I think that would be a great resource.
The person we usually use, I mean, it would probably be cheaper than a freelance designer. I'm not sure, but anyway, she's good. And I just wanted to get that question on. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much to Allison, Amanda, and Aaron. Thank you for joining us tonight.